Welcome back to another episode of the Start Something podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of the founder journey, breaking down what it takes and how it can change your life. Today, we have a very special guest, Shirah Benarde, founder and CEO of NightCap, home of the original drink spiking prevention scrunchie. Shirah invented NightCap at 16 years old and has gone to grow this from an idea that she had in a dream to a Shark Tank success, creating major partnerships such as with Bumble and Forever 21, and a huge following of 500K on TikTok.
Thank you guys for having me. Yes, I'm Shirah and I am 22 years old. I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida. I still live here. I absolutely love it. Florida girl forever. And yeah, so I was 16. I was in high school and I had an older friend that was roofied at the bar. A couple weeks later, I went to bed one night and I thought of this life-saving idea in a dream when I was sleeping. It was basically a scrunchie that doubled as a drink cover to protect yourself when going out to the bar. So I woke up and created this prototype out of my mom's stockings and an old scrunchie from my room to kind of show my dad what I was talking about. I had this idea. I didn't know how to vocalize it, so I just kind of gave him a visual and he immediately was like, it's nightcap or top hat. Like, this is a great idea. And I was like, I love the name nightcap. So we took that, we found a graphic designer, a local seamstress, sat down with a patent attorney and just took like the first few steps to really getting nightcap off the ground. I didn't know what I was doing. My parents are also not entrepreneurs. So we just it was all trial and error and we were just figuring it out as we went. And so we just took those first initial steps. My brother was going to Florida State at the time and he came home and he was like, this is a great idea. I've known women in my school who have experienced this, and he dropped everything to work with me. So now we're co-founders. It's been 5 years and it is crazy. We've sold 700,000 of them.
That's crazy. And you're only 22, right? Did I hear that correct?
Yeah. I'm 22. I just turned 22.
Wow.
I think something that's so special about your story is that, there's a lot of special things. You came up with this in a dream. You started it when you were 16. You were 17 when you ended up on Shark Tank. But for a lot of people in high school, when they come up with an idea, even if it is a great entrepreneurial venture, I think a lot of people tell themselves a story that, why am I qualified to do this? And how do I know I have what it takes to even pursue this idea? What do you think was different about your approach that made this actually feel like a possible thing to spend your time on?
Yeah, and I definitely felt like that. So don't get me wrong. Like, I think that's a huge part of my story is like when I started, I had no idea what I was doing. My classmates were like, why are you even doing this? And that, like, your product makes no sense. My family supported me during the time, but a lot of the people at my school were like, what is she up to? And I think what kept me going was just the fact that, like, I acknowledged that it came to me in a dream, and I realized that's like a very rare thing to happen. And I also, as a person, am someone who like is committed to being just a good citizen. And I thought, like, wow, what a way to help people. So I didn't really let that get in the way. I think definitely throughout my journey, I've come across obstacles that have to do with your mentality of you have imposter syndrome, or like somebody is a better founder than you, someone knows more than you. There's always like that. But I don't think that's a good enough reason for it to stop anyone, because I think at the end of the day, like, everyone's product or service has a deeper mission behind it. And like, we're all just human at the end of the day. Like, we're all supposed to be learning along the way. So yeah, I think it's all mentality. And if you want to create something, then you got to push through that little voice inside your head.
Absolutely. I love in the description of the In Your Dreams podcast, you said, if you don't know what you're doing, you're on the right track. Can you tell me a little bit more about that message and if it feels just as true today as it did 5 years ago when you were starting the company?
Feels very true today. I still think that way. I still think if we don't know what we're doing, we're on the right track. Like, you have to start somewhere. We all get so caught up in not knowing the right people are not knowing the next move. And I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship and the beauty of like taking a risk. I think like a perfect example of this is 2022 in March. I went to a conference in Las Vegas, and the CEO of Forever 21 was sitting on a panel with a bunch of other women, and they just did an amazing job. And I could tell like they inspired so many people. They inspired me. And I noticed that they just kind of walked off the stage and like stood there for a second. And I was like, why are they, I mean, they're such high caliber women. Why aren't they like going into a corner and like have a security guard? Like, why are they just standing there? So my friend and I, we walked over to them, and Winnie, the CEO of Forever 21, she's standing there. And I'm like, well, hello, like you did an amazing job. Here's a nightcap. And, you know, this is what it does. And she's like, oh, this is amazing. Like, let's get this in the stores. Like, I have a daughter.
Yeah.
Let's get this in the stores. In my head, I'm like, there's no way this just happened. And I think that's just a prime example of like, if you don't know what you're doing, you're on the right track. Like, not every day do I wake up and know how to approach a CEO of a huge retail store or like expect to do that either. So I think it's just like, kind of embracing the fact that like most of us don't know what we're doing. I think that the best part about all of it is that like you realize that not everyone knows what they're doing, even though a lot of people come off that way. We don't. So yes, I think it's still true to this day. And I think you have to embrace the unknown.
Right. I feel like in entrepreneurship, oftentimes people will use inexperience as a reason not to take you seriously. But it seems like so often our lack of experience and the fact that we don't actually know how hard the journey that we're going on is going to be, that actually helps us take those first steps. Because if we did know how hard it was going to be, maybe some of us wouldn't decide to take the journey. And so I feel like you embody that so much. And I love that message coming from you.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it too. I think it's so important. And I also used to say all the time, like when I was starting the company, that a lack of education is just a lack of experience, because you get out of school, maybe you studied business for the last 4 years and you're like, wait, what do I do again? And it's like, you have to just kind of jump into it and start and figure it out along the way. So even with a degree or with all the education, you may not know what you're doing because you haven't done it yet.
A lot of our listeners right now are interested and inspired, I'm sure, by your story. And I think one of the first things they would probably want to know, if I were in their shoes, is let's go back to your 16-year-old self, right? Where did you get the courage? You know, you go and make this product, and what's the first step? How do you get it out in the hands of customers? If a listener is coming here and listening to you right now, what would you tell them if they wanted to get started?
Oof. Well, a lot of different ways to get started, but I have friends that are going through this right now. And I give my brother a lot of credit because I'm not one woman show and like I don't do everything. So having someone there that you can trust, that you can 1000% trust, can be super important, because I think in the beginning and honestly throughout the entire process, it's so important to know that like you also aren't supposed to have all these answers. You should be talking to people and reaching out to like whoever to just kind of like get answers along the way. Because for example, in the beginning, we needed a seamstress. I couldn't sew and make these prototypes. I needed somebody to help me. But I think in the beginning, we didn't have any traction. Nobody wanted the product. So what I would say to someone starting is definitely go out there, see if it's a product that people actually want and need. Survey people on the street, not just your friends, because that can be biased, but go out there and actually ask people if you're solving a problem, which we did do. I think with NightCap, it took a good amount of time to get people behind the product because it was something that people didn't know they needed. Drink spiking wasn't like broadcasted, like people weren't really talking about it. If it happened to you, then you just kind of kept quiet about it. Even the statistics are like all wrong on the internet because people just don't voice these issues. So it was something that it's like, well, I've been drinking my whole life. Why would I need this drink cover now? But the reality is there's a problem out there and no one's doing anything about it. So nobody wanted it in the beginning. It was very hard to get traction. What we did to get sales was post on TikTok, which anyone and everyone could do for free, no ads, post on TikTok organically. And then obviously we applied for Shark Tank, and that helped us a lot because it gives you so much credibility. And if you're on Shark Tank, people are immediately interested for some reason, right? So it gives you that piece, which is really nice. But, when we went on the show, we had $68,000 in sales, and 40,000 of them were from like one TikTok I posted maybe a couple months before. So organic social media is where I would start. It's not going anywhere and it's free. It's literally the easiest time to get attention from people that you don't know. We reach millions of people every single month just by posting content. And it's new to everyone. Like it's another thing where it's like, if you don't know what you're doing, you're on the right track. It's new to everyone. There's no like real formula. There's so many different types of content. And yeah, I would just start by believing in yourself and taking those first steps.
I love the theme that you're saying here, which is I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to give it a try and I'm going to keep putting myself out there, right? That's the overarching theme I've heard you talk about since you're talking about when you're 16 years old all the way to now. Really, congrats on all your success already.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, because it's true. I feel like I've always kind of embraced that. And like, guess I've never been like scared to admit that, when I feel like a lot of people feel the need to like know everything. But yeah, in reality, we're all in the same boat.
Right. Well, I'm curious, I loved your story about how you met the CEO of Forever 21. How did you become connected to Julia Michaels, your celebrity investor? I'm sure that's the kind of investor that a lot of people would love behind a consumer brand. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Julia actually just reached out to us after Shark Tank. I think she just DM'd us on Instagram and was like, hey, I pretty much like just want a piece of this. Like, what are you guys doing? I want to be involved. So it was really exciting. Like, we were like, oh my God, this huge singer songwriter like wants support. So, we have Lori and we have Julia Michaels. I think a lot of people, I was just listening to a podcast about this the other day. They were saying how when you start a business, you're like, okay, what celebrity can get behind this now? Like, what celebrity is going to like take this product and just absolutely blow it up? In reality, it's just not that way. It's all the founder story. Are we even interested anymore in those celebrity products? Because I feel like we're not. Genuinely. I feel like for me, I love brands that I am invested in the founder and I know that they're on a mission. I know what's going on behind the scenes. One of my favorite founders that I shout out all the time is Allison from Poppy. And I just like love, she's always like making content, putting herself out there, showing the behind the scenes of Poppy. Here I am at the grocery store and I want one. But Allison didn't, she probably does have a lot of celebrities behind her, but I like her as a person. So what I'm saying is, you as the founder, you're going to make the business what it is. Like, I think maybe come back to yourself and rethink how you want to go about that, because I do believe that everyone thinks that someone big is going to come in and just blow them up, when in reality, it's all you.
In reality, it's the day-to-day grind.
Yep. It's all you and you got it.
And can you tell us a little bit more? I know you hinted at your experience applying to Shark Tank. Can you give us a little bit more insight about, how that went, how you felt when you heard you got onto the show and afterwards as well?
Yes. I don't know if you guys talk about law of attraction on here or manifestation. Yeah.
You're talking to the queens of manifestation over here.
I love this. Yes. So I remember watching Shark Tank on my couch with my brother. I was probably like 8 years old, and I would just be sitting there being like, I want to do that. I'm going to do that. And I remember like having those thoughts. Like, we would watch it religiously all the time. I remember watching Lori. Like, I remember everything that was going on. And then fast forward, we are applying to Shark Tank. It was COVID. We applied to Shark Tank. And there's like 40,000 people that applied that year. And so they call you back. They start narrowing it down. The first call you get, you're like, there's no way. And I feel like by the first call, when they called us, I was like, okay, I kind of have a feeling that this might actually work. Like, I always had just like a little feeling. I was like, I actually think it's going to work. And so they would call back and they would just keep narrowing it down to like 120 people or something. So they narrowed that thing down. And then, all those 120 people, they go and film, and then they narrow it down again. So like, you can go out there and film the show and they can cut you and not even air you. Yeah, it's all just like, you literally are crossing your fingers that everything's going to go right until you're like watching yourself on the screen. You can't talk to your friends about it. You can't like say anything. I'm superstitious. So I was like, hush, hush, like I'm not saying anything. Anyway, Michael and we flew out. Actually, my dad came with us because I was a minor, so he had to. And I was 17. He came out with us. We quarantined in a hotel room for 10 days in Vegas. And we literally like every single day would wake up, work out on one side of the room, and then we would pitch on the other side of the room. We printed out photos of the sharks. We put them on the couch and we would like just pitch for hours and hours. It was insane. What else do you have to do in a room for 10 days? And you can't even tell your friends what's going on. You're just there. It was crazy. So we did that for 10 days. We would order like iced coffee. They would deliver like breakfast, lunch, and dinner on their cart. Like it was fun. It was a good time. And then on the 10th day, they came and they took us out to this room, and you like waited in the room, and then eventually they took you to the set, and you're like, oh my God, this is like real. They put you behind the double doors, and you're just standing there for like 5 minutes, and you're like, oh my God. And I was like, my mind was in the same place as it is now. It's like, how the heck did I get here? But like, let's just do this thing. So we're behind the double doors open. You're walking down, there's no music playing like you think there is. And then the other doors open, you see Mr. Wonderful's head, and you just start. Like you just pitch, and you're like going for, I think it's 90 seconds. And I was so nervous that my brother was going to like mess up. So
I thought you were going to say you, but you said my brother.
I was nervous for him because I knew he was more nervous than I was, because he just a hard Shark Tank fan. Like he loves it. And so I could tell how like excited and nervous he was. He was like, how did we get here? And so we pitched. It went amazing. I don't know if you guys watched the episode, but Lori was like just on it. She loved it immediately. And obviously I did my manifestations before. I was like, we will get a deal with Lori Greiner. And then boom, there we are. Yes, she wanted 60,000 for 25%. We gave it to her, and the rest is history. Now we work with Lori.
On that episode, you and your brother looked very, very prepared. I mean, you did a fantastic job. And I'm curious, in your preparation, I mean, the fact that you were in a hotel for 10 days pitching makes a lot of sense after seeing the episode. I mean, you really were so polished. And even when you were asked questions about the numbers behind the business, I mean, you were ready to go. Can you tell us a little bit about what that preparation process looked like beyond the 10 days in the Vegas hotel?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we watched every episode to prepare. We wanted to know what they were going to ask us. And you can study the sharks. Like, you know what they're going to ask you. So we just really focused. And obviously, this was like one of the biggest moments of our life. We were going to prepare as much as we could. And I think being quarantined in the hotel made us focus even more. So I'm glad we had that time. And we literally just did it so many times, asking each other questions. Like our dad was like pretending to be a certain shark, or like my brother would, do my parts of the pitch and I would do his, and we would blast music, and we would try to like do all these distracting things to like, if our mind was somewhere else, we could still answer the question. Yeah, there was a lot of preparation to go into it. But even when we were in there, like it was only 32 minutes or something. And at the end, when we made the deal, we were like, there's so much more that we have to say. Like, did they get it all? That felt like 3 minutes. Did they get enough content for the episode? So we over prepared, which I suggest doing in any of those situations, because I'm so glad. Like, I don't know what we would have done if we didn't even prepare at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you started this story by talking about manifestation and deciding when you were 8 years old that you were going to be on Shark Tank. But I feel like sometimes there's this idea with the concept of the law of attraction that, you're not really putting a lot of work in. It's just things come to you like, thank you, now they're on my lap. But it's so clear that maybe starts you in the right direction, like points you in the direction that you want to go. But the amount of work that you did to actually land and in some ways receive this opportunity is so incredibly clear. And I feel like for a lot of young women, people underestimate us pretty dramatically. And something that I think you showed that is so important is when we're underestimated, there's something that we can do about it. We can over prepare. we can make sure that we've watched every episode of Shark Tank, practiced answering every kind of question we can imagine. And I think sometimes people like you that make it look so easy make other people feel like, oh, well, I don't have it. Like, I don't have the it factor, the je ne sais quoi that she has. But actually, it's something that you developed over time in all of this preparation. And it's so powerful. And it's something that anyone can do when they really commit themselves.
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it's so crazy that you say that I make it look easy, because it's never been that way. Like, it's never been just easy. I think jumping into it, just doing things has been easy, because I've always I think my parents put me in like all these activities as a kid. I was always doing something different. I was always bored at school. So I was working on like some kind of art project. So I was always like, all right, do it. And I'm always still like always looking for new like things to do. Like I start different clubs. Like I started a podcast. I can't sit still.
It's so relatable to, I think, both me and Bailey.
Yeah. So, and I also, the amount of things that I have done that have been so scary, that to the point where now I enjoy being scared to do things, because I know something good will come from it. And just another fun story for you guys, because I feel like it's on topic here, but I went to California by myself. Was it after the Winnie Park thing? I think it was. Okay. So I meet the CEO of Forever 21 with my friend. My friend goes home. I go to California, and I'm like sitting at a coffee shop, and I see on Instagram that there's like an Amazon influencer event at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And I'm like, you know what? I don't live here. So I am going to go, because I'm not in Florida. I am actually only 30 minutes away from this event. Why not, right? You only get one life. So I close my computer, I go back to my hotel, and I change into a really nice, like white jumpsuit, right? Look the part. Okay. So I Uber to the Beverly Hills Hotel. No idea what I'm doing. Don't know anyone there. I just see it on Instagram. And I walk in, and they're like, Amazon event. And I'm like, yeah. And so they guide me down this ladies, right? And the ladies have a list. And I'm like, oh, hi, this is my name. I'm like, this is my name. Like, actually, like I don't think I'm on the list, but like this person might be on the list. And if I can't get in here, just tell me real quick, because like my friends will just pick me up. Didn't have any friends around. And they're like, give us 1 second. And I did tell them about NightCap. So I was like, oh, I do sell products on Amazon. Like, no, that could work. I sell products on Amazon. And so they're like, give us 1 second. Sorry. I'm like, okay. I'm like waiting there, looking very confident, like I belong. And it's fine if I go home. So they're like, okay, go downstairs. All good. So I go down the stairs, and I'm like, this is so cool. Like, I've never been invited to anything like this before. And I couldn't even zip the back of my dress because I was by myself. So I go to this lady, and I'm like, can you please like zip my dress for me? And she's
Oh
like,
my God.
yes, of course. Like, I'm so excited for Paris. And I'm like, oh my God, me too. And so I'm standing there, and Paris Hilton literally walks out and sits down on stage. And I'm like, oh my God. And in my head, I'm like, literally about a month ago in my email, I was getting Paris Hilton comes out that she's been roofied at 15 years old, right? So like in my head, I'm like, this is just aligning. Like, this makes no sense. Don't know why I'm here. And also, that's crazy that I was getting emails about this last month, and now she's sitting in front of me. I'm standing watching Paris Hilton speak, all these people in front of me that were invited. She ends up going to this room to take pictures with everyone, and I had a nightcap in my bag. And I walk over to this room because I want a picture with her, and I want to give her a nightcap, obviously. So she's standing there, and I'm next in line. And the lady literally says, there's like an assistant or something there. She puts her hand down in front of me, and she's like, no, we're done. Like, no more photos. And I'm like, but I have this nightcap, I have to give it to her. And she's like, no, like, you're done. And so Paris Hilton starts walking away, and I literally go, Paris. And she turns around, and I'm like, this is a scrunchie that will protect you from being drugged. And she's like, do you want to come to this room back here with me? And so I pick all my things up, and I go back to this room with her. And like, I talk to her, I tell her about NightCap. I'm like, I know your story. Like, I know that you've experienced this. Like, this is our mission. This is what we're trying to do. And I just want you to have this. Like, I'm not like post. I'm like, literally do what you want with this. I just want you to know it exists. And so literally hung out with her, nicest person ever, took pictures.
Wow.
And meanwhile, there's a bunch of other people out here that were actually invited. But when you want something, go after it. You never know what could happen. Like the worst thing is a no, I guess. But I just felt like sharing that story with you guys because I feel like it's on topic.
Absolutely.
Best story ever. First of all, I think you just made my day, and that's so inspiring.
And she's so sweet. She was so nice. And I read her book, and she was put through so much as a kid. It's unreal. So, I mean, I can't believe that story either. And also like the adrenaline running through my body the entire time, like on the way to the hotel, telling them my name at the front. I was never not scared. And I think that's what made me keep going. Because I was like, if I'm scared, I feel like something good's going to come from this. And I swear the universe like will reward you for doing crazy things like that.
Yes. And one of the things I love about this story is when you said, I stood there confidently. I just stood there confidently. I feel like so often it's easy to signal that we don't belong somewhere, that we have a story saying, I shouldn't be here, I don't belong here, blah, 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 blah. And that story that we're telling ourselves shows up in our body language. And I love that even though you're saying you were scared, you decided that you would look confident. And that's one of the messages that I feel like is so important for female founders, especially when you're in the early fundraising environment or early sales environment. You're not going to feel confident, but it is absolutely critical that you look confident. And the amazing thing about actually standing there and acting confident is eventually you start to feel confident.
Mm-hmm.
That is how you embody that.
I also want to add that it sounds from Shirah talking today, it really sounds that comes from within. The way she writes her manifestations, I mean, you can speak more to it, Shirah, but it really, you truly believe in yourself and who you are in a person, and you're okay with no, right? Like the worst case scenario is it's just a no. Cool. At least I tried, right?
Yeah.
Well, those go hand in hand because like as an entrepreneur, you're getting rejected constantly. Like maybe you're making sales calls and nobody wants to talk to you, or maybe you are pitching to an investor and they don't want it. Like you're going to have to do that so many times probably. I love what you said. Like it totally comes from within. And I wasn't born like this. I definitely have struggled. I still do struggle with like sometimes, life goes like up and down. And so like you have to bring yourself back. Like I'm not like a very positive person 100% of the time, every single day of my life. Like it's not like that. But in certain situations, yeah, like I think if you need to trick yourself a little bit and tell yourself that you belong somewhere, like why not, right? You genuinely have one life. Why don't you just try and experience these things and give yourself a little more credit? I think we all deserve that. And I also, to just shout out my podcast again, it's like literally I started this thing because I noticed how we put people on these pedestals. And it's like, why are we doing all of this with like looking at, who we want to be like and thinking to ourselves that they're so much better than us? Because it's not true. Like I think Emma Greed said on a podcast, she was like, nobody's better than you and you're no better than anyone else. And I love that. And it's true. And we all started somewhere. And yes, like as a female founder, you're going to be put in rooms that you need to like put your shoulders back. And if you want to say fake it till you make it, sure. Like that does work sometimes, but it's so important. And especially in like a male dominated industry, like it's so hard to start. I've been in rooms 16 years old where these guys older men are questioning me about my business and like, no, I don't have the answers for you, but can I change the subject and make it sound like I have answers? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so clear from all of your stories, all of your content, the messages that you're sharing, that you also have this North Star and that you're incredibly mission driven. And I think one of the things that seems to have such an impact on people's imposter syndrome is when the mission is more important to them than how unqualified they look. And I love that it really seems like there's this thread through everything that you're sharing that you have this North Star and this mission that you're committed to accomplishing. And even if people doubt you, and even if people say no, and even if an opportunity doesn't work out, you're still going to be pursuing that North Star. Nothing's going to get in the way, even if the path that you thought might work out actually turned out to be something else. So I love that North Star comes through in everything that you do. And I feel like for a lot of people who know that, like you know, when you were a kid, that they, you know, you wanted to be on Shark Tank, you wanted to be an entrepreneur. I feel like there's a lot of people who are asking, like, but where do I get those ideas from? And I feel like if you're paying attention to the challenges that your friends are facing, like exactly what you did with NightCap, you're like, oh, my friend had a problem and I want to solve that problem. That's where all of these entrepreneurial ventures and ideas are coming from. And I love how you show that. And you also tell us that we can pursue that mission without having to be perfect the whole time.
Oh my God, I love that. Yes. And definitely pay attention. It's so key. I don't ever remember my dreams, ever. And I knew this thing came to me and I was like, if you forget this in the morning, I'm going to be pissed at you. To myself, pay attention, you know, like those ideas come to you for a reason. And I swear, like, I'm very spiritual in that way where I'm like, if it sits for too long, it's going to someone else, you know? So pay attention. And the whole perfect thing is great too, because definitely far from that. So start your biggest goals and dreams and come back to them later. They can always be revised because even like NightCap from the very beginning, it's extremely different than it was. Logos, branding, the way we like our sales channels, everything was different. The founders feel like different people. Me, my brother, we feel different. It's not perfect in the beginning. So don't even think about perfection. Not even a question.
Yeah, just that's one less thing that we need to have on our plates is like perfect.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
I think just being authentic now sells, you know, and we don't relate to perfection anymore. I feel like even when I'm scrolling on Instagram, like feel like my body reacts. I need to go for a walk or something now. And
it gives me the ick. I'm like, okay, this one is not the one I'm following, you know, let me scroll to the next.
Right. And honestly, clear out your social media, like only consume what is healthy for you. Like there's so much distraction, like try to minimize it and follow founders like you guys and good podcasts like you guys.
Well, I feel like this has been such an exceptional episode. Thanks to you. Your story is just, it's so amazing. I can't get enough of your content. I love how authentic it is. And I feel like you're so right in what you were just saying. There was a trend for a long time when social media first really kicked off, everyone needed to signal the most perfect version of their life. And things have really changed in the last couple of years in terms of how much we're all asking for authentic people, authentic connections from social media. And I feel like you embody that and you really create, you know, just a great role model for people who want to step into that journey. And I loved what you said on a different podcast about your TikTok journey, that for the first 3 months, you mentioned that it was really uncomfortable and you had to be on camera and you didn't love it. And I feel like for a lot of us, we kind of think to ourselves, oh, well, either it's natural and I like it and I'm good at it, or, you know, I'm not and I shouldn't pursue using social media like that. But I love that your story says, no, it's okay for it to be uncomfortable and for you not to like it at the beginning and to get through that until it becomes something that is comfortable, that you look forward to, that you are able to use and connect with your audience multiple times a day. And I feel like all these messages from this podcast and from your story are just so inspiring. And I'm so grateful that we've been able to have you on here.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much. I'm like, wow. Yeah, I hope this helped like someone out there. And
I think it will. I really do.
My favorite quote ever on that note is like, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should all get it tattooed on our foreheads. I think
foreheads only.
Yeah.
So where can our audience find you? What are your socials?
So you can find us on NightCap. It is our Instagram and TikTok and pretty much everything else. And I'll sneak mine in there, I guess. My TikTok is Shirah, SHIRAAH. And then listen to my podcast. It's coming out again in the end of September, a season 2. And I should really give away the first guest because I feel like I should. Okay. The first guest is Winnie Park, the CEO of Forever 21. And the conversation was so amazing. So I'm just like,
wow. And when does it come out?
It's the end of September.
Mark your calendars.
Episode 1. In Your Dreams podcast, and the socials for that are In Your Dreams pod. So.
Perfect. We will definitely reshare that episode. I am really looking forward to it.
Thank you everyone so much for listening to another episode of the Start Something podcast. Shirah, we're so lucky to have you here today and really appreciate everything you shared.
Thank you so much for having me.